Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome back to the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host, and by George, the team and I we're ready to get down to business. As you note, we're going to really get into politics now, big time. So it's so important, if you will, to make sure we cover all the bases, to make sure at the end of the day, we're going to have this great city, great city of roses, if you will, for sure. And then naturally, we've got the national situation that's going on. But right now, the focus has been on our city here in Portland, Oregon. We're trying to interview all of the candidates that are running for office, identifying them, trying to identify their issues, and how do they focus as far as dealing with what we need as far as the bottom line of the city. So the format that we're going to be forming around, we're reaching out to all of the candidates that are basically running for office aspect of it. And in fact, and even the sitting mayor, Ted Wheeler, we reached out to Ted Wheeler, and hopefully he's going to respond. And if he doesn't respond, we're going to just talk about him on the material that we have, whether it be the voters pamphlet or any material on TV or we'll Google it or whatever. But the bottom line, we're going to give you some background, and the team that I've got ready here now, they definitely will respond. And before I go any further, I'm just going to go on and introduce these guys right off the bat. See, you got Fred Stewart up there. I know you know Fred. And then you've met Pastor Minnieweather, White over here. White is very, very active in the community, very, very active. He got his own church aspect of it, so he's very, very community-oriented aspect of it. Then we got Jack Kerfoot, Jack, who ran for office, if you will, for the Nick Fish seat, and right up front with it. Let's say, as far as I'm concerned, he finished first because he was probably the most active person that I've known when I met him early on, and he really gets in there. And he's really a permanent fixture on the Voters Digest. You're going to be hearing more about Jack in the future because I'm sure he's going to have to run again because we're putting pressure on him. He's a good man. If anybody knows anything about economics, and if you don't know what the definition of economics is, how do you eat? That's the game. That's the bottom line. It's a very serious situation aspect of it. And Jack is he's got good background, and so I want to make sure that's a very key issue, i.e. the economics of this city. Because if we don't pay attention to that particular part, we won't have a city. I'm just right up front with you. Very, very important. So welcome aboard, guys. We got another couple of guys that might be joining us. Bob Williams. Bob Williams is a very active union guy. His history is union and politics, very much so in politics aspect of it. And so he's a Democrat, but hey, we welcome his comments. We want to hear the background. That's what this is all about in many ways. So we got him, and then we got another young man, and right up front with it, we tend to forget our youth. And we've got the young person. In fact, we were going to have a person from Antifa that was going to come on, and another young man from the Patriot Prayer aspect of it, because these are the young folks that their lane, if you will, of involvement is downtown Portland, and no one tends to mention that. See, that's at night. They come out at night because they have nothing else to do to a certain degree, but they do have issues and very serious issues. And so consequently, we want to make sure that they are part of what we're talking about here on the show. So that's kind of like our format. So we're going to kind of sort of feature a key person on the front end, spend about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, like we did last week. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Do about 15 minutes, and then the crew there, you'll see them. They're the audience and listening to what that person is saying. And then the second half hour, we will then spend the time with the rest of the group where we'll talk about that particular person's issue and also whatever issues we want to talk to and update you as to what's going on here within this whole political situation. It's very, very important. It's going to take, as one would say, it's going to take the whole village, if you will, to get the kind of leadership that we need to take Portland in a direction that will benefit the entire community. Very, very, very important. So with that, welcome aboard, guys. Appreciate that, and appreciate the fact that you're here. And I know all of you are very, very busy folks in your own rights. And I want to thank you very much. And I'm sure that the viewing audience would appreciate that also too. So with that, what we're going to do, we're going to open up the discussion and talk about we're waiting on the person the young person. But what we're going to do now, we're just going to basically get down to general conversation about some of the issues that are happening. And I'm going to throw this one on right up front with you on Fred. Fred, check this out. All of a sudden, there was another demonstration on Turner's facility there. The union rep for the Portland police. I guess they had burned something up there and whatever. But I noticed on the news that was the event, and a lot of the young people were there. So in all due respect, people were thinking, well, it was over as far as demonstration downtown. It was over. No, it's not over. Not over. The young folks, in all due respect, have shifted it over, and now they're in the front of Darrell Turner's place, the police precinct on Lombard. What did you think about that? Did you one check out the little news caps on that piece and some of the points that were made? What do you think again about police again?
Well, this is what we can expect. I mean, the police, they're sitting around complaining. When I say they, I'm talking about Darrell. Sitting around complaining and bitching and moaning like a teenager. You're not seeing the police being part of the leader for change, getting engaged, stepping out forward and listening to people and offering solutions. They're not doing that from the union side standpoint. And like I tell people, the people of Portland might have to vote one day and say, we don't want a police union. Hell, they may have to one day say, we don't want a public union. It's not like police unions and public unions have been friendly toward black folk. I mean, why is it taking protest at all to get the police to acknowledge that there's been issues? I'm not saying all cops are bad. I know nearly all of them are good, but they've got some bad apples. That Darrell knows who they are, and over the years, Darrell defended them and protected them. Yet he sits around and starts pointing fingers at Mayor Wheeler. Like I told you, I think Darrell's got to go. We need somebody who's a pro-union person, that's a pro-leader person, but also pro-chain of command person. In other words, they're not going to go out and embarrass the city. They're not going to go out and make fun of the city. And more importantly, they're going to show some real leadership in trying to bring the two sides together. You understand? Because I don't understand why Darrell isn't making himself part of the solution with the Portland police. He's representing his people. What are his people saying are changes that can be made to address the concerns of the community they serve? There's got to be something. I know a lot of these cops, and you're not telling me that they're sitting around with their hands folded saying, fuck you. Excuse my French. But you know what I'm talking about. They're not just standing back and tell people to go and pound sand. When they're talking among each other, I guarantee there's some solutions popping up. We're not hearing from the police.
Fred, tell me, first off, we've reached out. I reached out to Darrell, and he's got to make up his own mind as to whether or not he wants to appear here on the Oregon Voters Digest.
Darrell's not from here, so he's not going to. He's not from here. He's from Jersey.
But the point I'm making
is just a job to him.
Hold up for me. But the point I'm making is that at least I reached out to him. Okay. He has the opportunity to come and express himself. I mean, because he's the union. He's a union.
Black buck ain't ever coming over.
Well, hold up now. Hold up again. To take another shot at that watermelon you get.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but the bottom line is that we reached out to him, and the other side of the coin. What about your reaction with reference to the new chief? How do you think he's as far as the chain of command? This guy is trying to get out there. I've known that he's done some press conference. In fact, he did one today.
Exactly.
But then, and so the consequence. What do you think about that piece? Again, Fred.
Look, I'm not in city council. I support whoever is chief right now. I will say, the guys, probably needed to be an assistant chief a little longer before he's chief. I still think he's on OJT in it. I have nothing against the man, but we need somebody that. It's great to have a black police chief. But Chief Moose proved that just because you have a black police chief doesn't mean you got good leadership. This guy is already better than Chief Moose ever was, but we need
what
better.
About King? Remember King? Remember the guy that his last name was King, and he was working with Willie at one point in time. So sort of one of an assistant. He was on the staff, and he was a policeman. His name is King. What's his
Yeah,
first
King
name?
would have been an excellent police
Yeah,
chief,
yeah, he would have been
but they
awesome.
would never hire King.
Wow. Why is that? What do you think? Why?
I don't think. I mean, King's a good guy. He's a
He
very good
is.
guy, but I don't think Joanne wants that. I think Joanne feels that the police chief should be black right now, and yeah, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. If she was really smart, she'd go back and bring back Derek Foxworth or something. She'd bring back Goldschmidt did when he was mayor. He went and got an old guy, not Goldschmidt. What's his name? Mayor Clark. Mayor Clark went out and
But
got Baker, who was retired, and brought him back, and I mean, and fired all the cops that he felt were bad, which was a lot of cops. You know what I mean? And he got a guy who knew how to lead people and how to lead as a police officer and how to organize a public organization. And because he had 20 years experience doing just that. You know, we need to do something like that. You know, go back and get somebody.
All right. Let's get the other
But
guys
look, I have nothing against this guy. I think
all right. You got it.
he's
You
got
made
a
the
great
point.
opportunity, and there's no reason for him not to take it. He's doing the best he can.
Okay, made the point. Okay, good. Let's bring the other guys in. Let's go and get in. I'm gonna get Dwight in on this piece at this point in time. Dwight naturally has been working very closely in the community and trying to get guys back into the community, if you will. They spend a little time in the deal there and whatever. And he's very active in his church membership and whatever. Dwight, what do you think about this whole piece about police?
Well, I believe that what we were doing a little while ago was very effective. It was trying to bring like a relationship between our community and our police officers. So we were doing a lot of great work at the time that I think that if the chief would look back at that kind of work and realize that right now, just the bigger part of expressing, you know, who are the good cops? You know, they keep saying we got good ones, we got bad ones. Well, at some point when the good ones protect the bad ones, they become bad too. So at the same token, I'm just, you know, kind of disappointed at the fact that it's been like 2 or 3 years since we did anything with young African-American kids, or since they supported me to take kids and do some other type activities. It's just been a little bit of a distance between that. And in those 3 years, that little ground that we have made up where parents would come into our camps, meeting officers, and I'm talking about not the average parent, but those parents that have been in the game, gang member mothers, fathers, they were, you know, bringing their kids to the camp. But as they were coming, they were like, Minnieweather, you got the police here. You know, what's up with that? And then next thing I know, they started respecting the police. They started having conversations with the police.
Oh, okay.
And next thing I know, they were the same people were talking about how negative it was. They had got friendly with these same officers, and you know, the officers were helping with bicycles. They were helping with Damian Lillard's shoes. They were investing in that community, and the community was starting to get some trust and a little respect towards the fact that Pastor Minnieweather has always been trying to say there's a difference between snitching and being a witness. And they are not putting that information out clearly enough in our community, because anytime that you tell the truth, you tend to be a snitch. So the officers were breaking that code down, and we were doing pretty good there. So right now, I just think that the hostility of the drop off and the nothing has been really happening in the community. The police haven't really made an effort yet to just say, okay, we acknowledge our wrong. We acknowledge that we need to do some things. We acknowledge that the community is needing these responses. And like I said, I drive by MLK, it's just boarded up there, and they're coming out the back door going down the side. And I'm like, I mean, how long are we going to look at that? Look like an eyesore of Killingsworth and MLK. So my feelings are, I want to support the chief. I reach out myself a couple times and say, look, I'm 20 years into this, working with the hardcore community. I'm not talking about people I'm talking about the people, and I've been transitioning a lot of people to the normal lifestyle, but I'm just needing them to understand that where we stand today is all because that they kind of backed away from becoming involved with the community and being open to community. So I don't know what the solution is going to look like, but they need to get back to being a part of the community.
Well, appreciate your comment. You know, the other thing I was going to share with you was that the fact that we used to have PAL at the police department, Police Athletic League, and in all due respect, they let that down basically. And in fact, during the Foxworth time, he sort of just kind of like he just didn't take enough interest in that piece. But that was a very solid piece, if you will, and was all involving law enforcement for the entire city. PAL was very involved. So realistically, you basically picked that PAL up, and in all due respect, they should have continued that part. But other than that, they brought in the whole issue with the profiling piece. So they added that piece and funded that piece. So people don't understand that transition, if you will. Had they invested more in the PAL group, they would not have needed that situation that was just defunded, if you will. That was just defunded.
Yes, sir.
You need to know what that operation was all about. So they basically, as far as I'm concerned, they shifted the money to that particular point. Okay, look like we got Bob. Where's our big Bob? He's a union man. So we're really gonna be we're in now. We're in life in now. So we're gonna get Bob in, and then Jack's gonna come in on the whole piece. But Bob, you know, we're just talking about the recent gathering, if you will, at Darrell Turner's office over there on Lombard. You know, the police department. He's a union rep over there, right? You got me. And so it's kind of interesting that's happening. We have reached out. I've reached out to him, and hopefully he'll make a decision to come on the show, so we can just spend some time with him to get a definition in terms of what he's all about. And I think the people, they haven't done him just yet from the standpoint that people still don't know what his role is. You know what I mean? And so with the union rep aspect of it, you know, you got that background. You've been in the union. In fact, you retired in the organization, the union aspect. That's a very, very important piece. But more than that, Bob, I'm going to throw something out to you. I noticed that about a month ago in New York, one of the senior union rep folks, well, he was commissioner type of deal, but about senior representing the union, but he's very active in New York. This particular guy, he was a former policeman, whatever, big time guy. But he announced the fact that the national union, Union of Police, have endorsed President Trump. They endorsed President Trump, and you know that was kind of like very interesting, because from my understanding, from a historical standpoint, the unions have always represented the Democratic folk, if you will, the Democratic folk. This is the first time in the round. But like I said, if you've got some other background material on it, but my point is that that's what was being shared, and they really didn't spend enough time educating everybody about the deal. So what do you think about it? But again, shifting it again a little bit, but getting back to Darrell from the standpoint of trying to educate our people here in Portland, how did this all come about? The union rep, and the union was representing law enforcement here in the city of Portland.
Well, Bruce, you know, union reps' job is to represent their members. They negotiate a contract with, we'll just say the city.
Right.
And as they do their job, and then the city let them do their job. Well, when the city steps in and start dictating or second guessing you on what you're doing, instead of meeting with you and telling you, wait a minute, that's not the way we want it done. This is how we would like to see it done. Instead, they want to get the press involved and everybody, instead of negotiating, because that's what it's all about with the union, then you begin to attack the members who are trying to do their job. And they weren't, when people were marching and everything, nothing was being done by the police until they started looting and rioting. And so when they started looting and rioting, that's when the police come in, because it's their job to protect all citizens. You know, some of us don't feel that they do protecting of all. Sometimes they do a little bit more than protect when it comes to certain people of color. But that's the idea of it. And then you ended up with your city council people and the union leader going at it. City council talking bad about the cops. Well, the cops representatives got to say, wait a minute. And they're going to talk bad about you not doing your job. When the city council began to say negative things about the police force, who they hire, then it's up to that representative to protect his members. And that's what he was doing. He, you can't tell me, protect my city, but here, tie your hands behind your back as you do it. When people start looting and rioting, they're hurting other innocent citizens. And then that's when the police came in. But other than that, as far as the National Association of Police Officers coming out supporting someone, that's the leadership of all these different police forces.
Okay.
It's like the AFL-CIO brings all the unions together. Well, that association bring all the police forces together. The AFL-CIO and this board determine who they're going to support in the election. Unions, for the light, the unions have autonomy. They don't have to go with who the AFL-CIO support. And so that's how that works. You still have freedom. The people have freedom to vote how they want. It's just that the leadership feels that Trump is doing the right thing by giving them freedom to do whatever he thinks their job is. That's all it is. It's a move.
Why don't we bring Jack in now? And because Jack was out there knocking on the doors, and naturally these people were asking him all kinds of questions and whatever. And Jack, we're gonna just see what Jack has to say about, did he hear that when he was knocking on those doors and talking to people, and did they understand that the police, the law enforcement people on the ground, if you will, were actually under contract and were following those guidelines? Jack, your comment. What do you think?
Well, I think that there is a general lack of understanding of the two. And I think when Daryl Turner, who's the head of the union, speaks out, he gives the impression that he's a leader in the police force. His roles are, as Bob said, are very different than the chief of police, chief level. I heard the chief speak today. I thought he articulated the challenges facing the city right now. And to be fair, let's sort of take a moment to stand back and look at what we have. We've had now 3 chief of police in a year, or less than a year. We have, on the national level, we have the Black Lives movement that started for very, very valid reasons. They're particularly concerns about police violence against the Black community. But now we've also got issues as well historically with issues within the city of Portland as well. We have 46 officers that are retiring this month. We have the city council that none of them really have any training or background in law enforcement.
Right.
And at the same time, they're looking over the shoulders saying, you're not doing it correctly. So there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And the other factor we have to realize is not all police forces are the same. There is an ongoing change over the last few years over the way to do what I call community police work as opposed to state or federal level. So there are a lot of dynamics here, and the chief is in there in a bit of in a storm, if not a hurricane, trying to bring peace and order and calm and be a leader to the police force, to energize the men and women that are very tired. They're working long, long hours. He thanked the Multnomah County Sheriff who've been helping out as well. And also the Oregon State Police. But the challenges he has, he wants basically to start the dialogue and community outreach to different groups to look at how we can bring about changes, positive changes, so the words are there. And I would say that we need that, with all due respect to the head of the union, Daryl Turner, that we need to let the chief of police lead the police in these discussions, lead the police on the organization, and reinvigorate the organization so they can do their job. I respect that the union has a very different role and very distinct role. It's very important, but let the head of the union deal with the union issues and let the chief of police deal with the police and the changes within the police force.
Well, looks like we're at that point. Fred, hold your point. I'm gonna start off with you when we come back. Welcome back, folks. Hey, the first 30 minutes. Welcome back. And for those of you who are just joining us, hey, look here, again, we're talking about the whole issue of our city, in all due respect. And we've been sort of bringing you an update, if you will, of some of the activities that happened since we last saw you, okay? And you can see the team is here with me. I mean, I've got Jack Kerfoot, he ran for office before. Again, introducing these guys again. Got Fred Stewart, very active in the community aspect of it. We've got White Minnieweather. He's here too. There he is. And where's Bob? Is Big Bob in there?
I'm here.
Okay, there he is. There's Bob, right there, Bob Williams. And we spent quite a bit of time on this with Bob a bit on this union piece, because in all due respect, the new chief had a press conference. He had a press conference. Besides the new chief having a press conference, our dear friend from the police union, Daryl Turner, in all due respect, all of a sudden he had a problem last night. I mean, they were burning and they were demonstrating that area. And these were the young folks. I mean, they were demonstrating. They weren't downtown at the Justice Center, if you will. So now people are thinking that, well, it's over with. Well, it's not over with. You know what I'm saying? And so we were kind of like, we were going to basically have a young person to come in and talk to us about it. Maybe someone from Antifa, from the Antifa group, because that's been said, but no one talks about that. There's a lot of young folks that are downtown. And we got to spend some time with those folks too. I mean, I'm saying this over again because I said that point on the front end of it. But again, so thank you for being with us. And so now we'll get back to where we were at the discussion. We were talking with Bob about this union piece. That's a very, very important piece because as Bob said, and he can, even though we're talking about it, now's the time for us to talk about this piece. Let's talk about how do they go about getting that union contract. That's a contract. And that contract defines exactly what role they play as police officers. If that's my understanding, Bob could reiterate that particular point. So consequently, they got in discussion. And I'm going to throw this out to Bob. And a lot of times, especially with the police, it's so public aspect of it. A lot of this stuff is behind closed doors, or if not that, you got to go to city council, maybe late night, on the day. And there's a whole bunch of issues, a point that people are not aware of. The majority of the people are not part of the negotiations. Normally the representatives are, meaning the mayor and the city council people. These are the representatives that we elected. So basically, they're our employees, if you will. And so they're making those decisions. So the public really need to know that. And I'm going to throw this out to Bob again. Can you share with us, with your experience, how do you guys go about, well, naturally, if it's a corporation or a certain segment of the city or whatever, they're talking to those folks, thinking those people are very much involved because it talks about their salary and all kinds of good stuff, if you will. But Bob, how do they communicate? Because right now it's lacking with the transparency of the communication from the city council, because it sort of stops at the city council and they sit down there and have these discussions, but the public doesn't get that information. And I'm just throwing that in my feeling.
Well, number one, you can't negotiate with a room full of people. You think about it, if you have 100 people in a room and you're trying to negotiate, and each one of them take 5 minutes on their situation, look at how much time you spend. So you have a committee, the mayor and whomever he chooses on his committee to negotiate the contract. The contract is negotiated from the union part on 3 issues: wages, benefits, working conditions.
Okay.
So when you and then there's some other smaller items that come up. Hey, how are we going to do it? But then again, people, the police are trained by outside forces on how to do their job, i.e., they go to school. They go to a police academy and they learn how to do the job, and then they learn more on the job. But the problem becomes is when everyone thinks they have the solution. They're in a fluid situation. And that fluid situation says we have outside agitators coming into town, and now the people that was doing things the correct way in the city to get something done, that would benefit all of us, are now being silenced because of some of the outside agitators. It's not all of them, it's some of them. You know, so that you cannot have a fight with me and expect to negotiate at the same time.
Okay. All right.
So what is it that everybody wants?
Okay.
What does the city want, and what does the police want?
Okay. That's a good point. I'm going to get Fred in now. And Fred, he said, do we have I'm throwing this out to you. What about the transparency piece? And what do you think? You think the citizens, the voting public, really understand what's going on with reference to this whole issue of the contract, negotiations, whatever? Go on.
Bob, I got to start off with this. Bob, I love you. I've known you over 36 years.
Well,
you were dead wrong about how the Portland police is trained. And this is what's bad about people who don't even live in Portland commenting about how we do things in Portland. What Bob said about how we train our cops, absolutely wrong. Anybody that listened to what he said, what he told you is absolutely wrong.
They do not go to the police academy.
He doesn't know how it's done. Let me go back and answer this question.
Let him talk.
What you said at the end of the last segment is what the Portland police are saying. And what they're saying is they have no leadership. Our cops today are passed around like pawns. They're supposed to be nice to gang members and their mamas and daddies. They're supposed to be sensitive. They're supposed to be mental health people. They're not supposed to be, too aggressive in fighting crime. They can't make assumptions ever. I mean, then on top of that, they're watching their district attorney not hold criminals accountable. So what you're seeing right now is a lot of cops are pulling back. And we got, at the end of this month, I think Jack is right. We got about 48, 49 cops leaving. But what nobody else talks about is that between now and the end of February, we got 200 cops that are out of here. They're gone. We're going to have fewer cops on the roads in Oregon, in Portland, Oregon, than we did in 1960. Do you understand that? And we don't have very much success lately recruiting anybody. It is not easy to become a Portland cop. It is hard. It's one of the hardest police departments on the West Coast to become one of. Just flat hard. We're white or black. It is hard. And we do spend a year and a half training, and that is after they've gone through police academy. And guess what? Quite a few of them didn't go through police academy. They went through college and stuff, and then we trained them. Got to think about that, Bob. We train these cops. And a lot of times cops get in trouble for doing what they're trained to do. I ain't saying they did it right, but the people they vote for signed off on what they were supposed to do and how they're supposed to approach something. That is one of the strongest arguments to let Joanne be city commissioner, even though I understand, she's going to be able to recruit and replace the file that we need. I don't think people that are interested in law enforcement will want to work under her. That's just my personal opinion. But the line, at the very least, if she's police chief, we would probably get a type of police force that the worst case scenario would reflect the level of people. Hopefully those values aren't being nice to criminals and their moms and dads. You know what I'm talking about? Because, guys, I'm telling you, every time in our country's history where people reached out and been kind to the people that are to it, they have suffered. They suffered in Chicago. They suffered in New York. They suffered in Louisiana, LA. It ain't gonna work. If you can't, like Bob's you can't negotiate and be at a fight time. I'm not interested in a cop making buddies or making friends with the mom and dad of an active gang member. No, I want that whole family to leave Oregon. I don't want part of the black community. And I want our law enforcement and judicial system active in making that so. And what I want other people doing is giving those people an opportunity to walk away from being a threat. I ain't saying, hey, I don't want to give a second chance, but while they're active, I want them looking at cops and understanding the cops are there to look for them. That's what we want. That's what the city wants. You understand? That's what the city wants. But if people want to, blame the cops for everything, you know what the cops are saying? I'm out of here. And this is where we're going to be about a year from now, Bruce, before I end here. A year from now, we're going to reap the whirlwind. We're going to reap the whirlwind. It's going to be 1932 in Portland, Oregon all over again. That was a very, very bad year. That was the last time we didn't have enough cops to cover the growth in this city. And I got to tell you, Bob, in 1932, the stories I heard growing up, they weren't pretty. But they didn't have AK-47s back then. They didn't have cars that were as fast as we have today. They didn't have a lot of the sophistication we got today. And about a year and a half from now, we are going to suffer. We're going to reap the whirlwind.
Okay, buddy. I appreciate that. Jack, we'll bring you in there real quick, and then make sure that Dwight, you get in on it. He made some points and whatever. But I guess the point I'm going to ask you to put on the table, Jack, is that what he was talking in regards to his concerns was that part of the contract? Did you feel that that was contract? In fact, I'll throw Bob on that too. Also, too.
Okay.
Was that
right
part
quick,
of the contract?
Bruce?
Real quick,
What I was talking about is what is negotiated with police by the city,
right?
Not by the public, by the city. What Fred was talking about is them doing their job and them being restrained by the people that hired them to do the job. Okay. And I agree with him on that. Mm-hmm. You can't blame the police for not doing their job when you're holding them back from doing their job.
That's part of the contract. That's what I asked. Yeah. That's why I want to get the other guys involved in the process. Jack, what do you think?
Well, there are a lot of issues here, and the question is, if you have a public squabble between the city council, the union president of the union, and the police themselves, then the ability to make positive change is very low. And what we have seen is the demonstrations have wreaked havoc on the communities downtown Portland and our city. We've seen an increase of violence. We've seen an increase in murders. We've seen an increase in shootings. So I am concerned from that standpoint. I'm also concerned that are we really spending our money the most effectively? Are we working with the schools to try and help our young children who maybe have an opportunity or maybe presented with an opportunity they may look very appealing, but in actual fact is a path leading toward drug addiction or crime, being pulled in that direction as well. So some of the things that Pastor Dwight has been involved in, I think we need to, as a city, invest in very heavily and really put an effort to try and work with the community, with our police and with our schools and with our churches and our faith-based groups to get these changes made. So the problems that we're facing with our city are very complex. And unfortunately, today's society, we think the world is just like Facebook. It's either thumbs up or thumbs down. There's a lot of area in between that we need to work on. I will say the chief of police, I thought his press conference today was very good. He tried to open the door for collaboration and to build bridges. So I applaud him for that. We recognize the concerns for the police themselves that are having to work very long hours and the challenges they have and the challenges the family of the police have. Our police in so many parts of our city are just vilified, and their kids and their families are vilified simply because they serve and protect our city. So the challenges we have to stop the hate. We have to sit down and work for positive solutions. And we need to quit grandstanding, quite candidly, and work for positive solutions.
Okay. Well, I want to bring in Dwight now at this point in time. And I'll make just a point in regards to that. This whole issue, all of our issues for that matter, besides the pandemic, was all brought to the table with Black Lives Matter, i.e., with a cop kneeling on a blacks from that standpoint, and that was done worldwide, if you will, and everybody is identified with that piece. And in most cases, the George Low, if you will, are the kinds of many, in all due respect, the minute of those types of individuals, White basically knows these folks. Those are the kinds of folks that were there, but they're never represented. They're only basically there to raise the money, to get the money. People overreact to that piece of it. So now we're talking about the whole city. But now the key with the black, as I see it, the Black Lives Matter, see, I don't want this situation to go right back where it started from. You got me? And we got more George Floyd. Now all of a sudden people are kind of picking and choosing, if you will, and kind of saying, ignoring that same entity that got us to where we are today about
That's
the concern.
right.
So I want Dwight to go on and reflect, basically, what does he see about this whole deal?
Well, you know, my whole thought process is the recidivism. I think about how is it going to function if they desire to do what is the right thing. Well, what the job look like then when you're doing the right thing and you're not looking for people to repeat the same acts and be in the same positioning. This is like an old movie to me. I mean, I don't watch this too many times, but it's like being in a household, you know, and you know, mama supposed to be mama, because we're gonna call that the chief, and then daddy supposed to be daddy. We're gonna call him the well, you know, I'm talking, we're gonna call everybody by their title.
Right.
But if everybody in the house is in confusion and they're not on accord, how do the children respond? See, that's what we're like. We're like a bunch of children right now, responding to lack of parenting, lack of political guidance, lack of things. People are not just doing things that are leading us and helping us to deter. And then we got to sit back and listen to them fight when we ain't seen them do nothing. I mean, we just seen them fight. We don't get to see nothing but
That's right.
a fight. We just watching a fight and a fight. And I'm saying, well, if I come home every day and daddy and mama and them just fighting, I'll just slip out the door while they fighting. And I just want to say, if there was ever this kind of system when we was young, crime would have been ridiculous. I'm just saying, this is like an opportunity for a criminal mind to just be a pure criminal, because everybody who's supposed to be responding to the law of enforcing the law or protecting and serving us, they're fighting amongst themselves. They're in-house fighting, and it doesn't look good on Joanne's part, Loretta's part, any of them part, because we thought we elected them to come together and govern us with leadership. We thought we brought them in to be able to set the rules and regulations of the house. What we don't do, what we do. And it's so simple that we haven't even got to what we're doing. I mean, I've been watching this thing for 60
Right.
days, and I'm waiting to hear what we're doing. And all I keep hearing is, Ted Wheeler got gas and he don't like the gas. And I'm like, well, I don't think nobody liked the gas, but when are we going to come to the fact that we know that we need to start electing leadership that's going to look beyond their personal issues or personal opinions, or maybe even policy and party, and do what's best for this community, because this community is lacking leadership totally. And I'm telling you, some of the guys I talk to, they're from gangs, they're from the streets, you know, I'm talking with them every day, and I'm asking them, how you feel about what's going on with the police? And they like, man, listen here, defunding the police ain't the smartest thing in the world to do. You know, and they're gang members. I mean, they're sitting there saying, hey, bro, we the ones they're looking for. But we're saying, we don't want to be in a place where there ain't no police and there ain't the right ones to do what we need done. So I'm just lost right now, like I said, and I kind of agree with Fred a lot. You know, Fred speaks a loud voice to what I understand. It's just a lot of smoke and screens, man. And if you stay behind the smoke, you'll run into the screen.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll eventually run into the screen.
Okay, another little point that I'm gonna throw out. You made that point about someone should be sort of like in charge, and to a certain degree, and the person that just stands out, and we want to talk to everybody a little bit about that, is Joanne. See, and Joanne had asked early about, she made it a point, if you will, that was her platform. Basically, when she ran for office, was the police piece, because she had spent a lot of time in the community dealing with folks, if you will, on an ongoing basis, Ministerial Alliance, and a lot of other good folks and whatever. And so all of a sudden now she's elected to office, and then you would think, and all due respect, the mayor was sitting there, and he's the guy that controls all of the bureau assignments. So yeah, I thought it was going to be a natural deal to give it to Joanne. You know what I mean? And let her do her work. She wouldn't be OJ'd in. She'd be on the job. and knowing she knew Daryl, she'd worked with Daryl before. She's been to meetings, all this kind of good stuff. But here we are today, and the mayor has not. He didn't assign it, and so naturally he said, "Well, I'm going to keep this." And obviously, he's running for office too. So that's the highlight of what's going on right now. Police. So hey, he's the assignee, and he's opted to keep it. But the bottom line, they're working together. But she's always going back to the table saying, "Give me the police," and she's just sitting there. What I'm making here is that there's another major concern. I saw an interview with her in the press, and whatever, and also with Wheeler about 2 or 3 nights ago or whatever. And one of the points that came out was that Joanne has been getting some major threatening letters. People have been calling her, sending letters, and all kinds of weird things, if you will. Not a good thing to do. And in fact, there was a major concern because the mayor even made the point about the fact that the concern about her getting those kinds of threats and whatever. And she's been very public. And if you notice, she really gets out there in the people game. And there's some weird folks out there right now. If Fred had gotten out, they would run away. They wouldn't be messing around with Fred.
I'd go knock on their door and say hello.
See what I'm saying? And he's caring too at the same time. But Joanne is not caring.
No, I'd have some beer bottles in my hand.
Well, look, see what I'm saying? See, they would not.
He go buy them all.
They would set him aside. See, he would worry about it. But no point of
I
this.
have some beer bottles.
No, but it's a major concern. So I'm gonna throw this to Fred because, in all due respect, some of the policemen don't feel good and comfortable with Joanne. But in all due respect, she, as far as I'm concerned, she's the better person to take the job right now. Aspect of it. A lot of folks don't understand. That's why I'm meeting with Fred and not you, Bob. Okay, because he deals with police. Fred, go on. Talk about
my position, Joanne, is clear. I mean, look, if we got to make a change, no matter what. Ted obviously isn't going to get us where we need to be. Somebody on city council has to run it, and I mean, Joanne, why not? But I think Joanne, the best she's going to be able to do is maybe instill some changes that reflect some of the values that we want to see. But look, guys, I can guarantee you, she's not going to be able to recruit. We've got a city that's gaining 30 to 40,000 people a year. We've got a city that is 3 times the size it was in 1960 in land mass, and more than 4 times the size it was in population. And we're going to have a smaller police force than we did back then. Smaller, not bigger. Okay? We're going to have a lot of problems that I don't think Joanne's going to be able to manage, because these problems are manpower problems. Okay? They're manpower problems, and if you don't have the personnel, you're not going to be able to cover all the bases. We're going to have areas right now that are relatively safe that 2 years from now, 2.5 years from now, you're not going to want to walk around there. You're going to tell people you love, don't go to that part of Portland. It's not that that's never happened before, but this is nothing. I mean, think about it, guys. Bob Williams came to Portland, Oregon in the 1970s, saw sweet and basically sugar powder. That's what inner north and northeast Portland was, and said, hell no, I'm living with the white folks out in Clackamas. What you're going to see in the future, is going to make what inner northeast Portland was like in the 1970s look like Disneyland. It's going to get bad. And it's not, the only good thing about it is it's not going to be just the black people. It's going to be a very integrated, all of our bad areas are going to be very integrated, because, guys, this goes back into what we all know is the baseline of why we've got so much violence. It's the poor people that are doing it. Rich people are shooting up our community.
Fred, what about the mayor? I mean, he is the mayor and he is the police commissioner. Can he not organize, if you will?
No, I've given up on Ted. Ted can do it. He's got the power. But Ted is, that this is not his deal. He's a legislator. He's not an executive. He's not. He is he'd be great at an insurance company. He'd be an excellent banker. But this is something that needs a person who's got leadership skills of leading people, of someone who listens well, can put together a goal based on what they're hearing that their community wants, and set goals that people and make sure people reach these goals. He's not that type of guy. I don't hate Ted or nothing, but he's just wishy-washy. You know, I mean, he should be mad as heck that we got people flying into Portland, Oregon from all over the country who are going violent and looting in a community that they haven't invested in. I mean, you know, talking about that they don't live here, but they want to come and have a say-so here, right? How come you guys
That's what I just said.
Fred, let's get back to the point. We've got 3 races now. We got the one that's coming up. Okay, do you think we're going to be able to get the leadership that you're talking to from this group?
You know, I got good faith in Dan Ryan and Loretta. I mean, Loretta, I think, would be a good addition to city council, and I've endorsed her. But I'm going to tell you, the more I've learned about Dan, the more I'm impressed. I think Dan would be an excellent police commissioner. I think Dan would be able to handle being a police commissioner for many reasons better than Joanne. Joanne's got a lot of baggage. We're talking about baggage that is nationwide. We got people who are looking at getting into law enforcement nationwide that will never work with Joanne, ever. They won't even give her a shot, okay? But Dan, that might be different. But, you know, I mean, he's got similar values about the law enforcement than Joanne, but he does seem to be a guy that listens a little bit better than Joanne.
Okay, all right.
I'm not hating on Joanne here, guys. I think I'm happy Joanne's the city commissioner.
Okay, let me get a couple of folks involved in this.
Okay.
Okay, Jack, what do you think about that?
Well, Ted has his attributes, but being a strong leader, he's not exactly impressed me. You know, in Vietnam, you knew pretty quickly who were the leaders and who weren't.
Yep.
And just whether or not they had a bar on their shoulder or 2 bars on their shoulder, it didn't matter. You need someone that is a communicator and a builder. Quite candidly, I think Dan Ryan has those skills to do that. But
I agree.
The question is, will Ted Wheeler, if he's reelected, and I think he will be, allocate that position of chief of police to Dan Ryan? Typically, the mayors have always held that position close because it is a position that is very high profile, and one misstep obviously gets a lot of negative publicity, and from their standpoint, they want to try and maintain control as much as they can. The reality is today, everybody has a phone and you can control almost nothing. So you better have yourself a strong leader. And in my opinion, Dan Ryan is going to be the strongest leader and the most effective leader on that city commission.
Okay. Well, Jack, a couple of things is that Joanne is working very closely. She's endorsed Dan. Got me?
Right.
And Dan has basically said, I got my background. You know, that's a very important piece. So they got that piece, and then naturally you got Ted, who happens to be the mayor. He does the assignment of the bureaus. So you got the 3 people to a certain degree that can give the directions, if you will. Now the key is the transparency and educating the public, the people who hired them, who basically by voting are basically electing these folks. Now, now let's get down with, go on.
But if I may wait one point, if you actually look at the number of bureaus the city of Portland has, and you look at the number that are under the Ted Wheeler, you will see that there is a dramatically long list of bureaus under his watch.
Right.
And that tends to be people that like to micromanage a bit.
Yeah.
And it also means it's very difficult for them to be effective from that standpoint. So considering the importance of the police, considering the state of affairs in our city, I think we do need someone that can spend and commit more of their time, man or woman, black or white, that can come in there and work with the union and the chief of police to build good relations with our city and the diverse group we have.
Okay. Well, let's go to Dwight now. Dwight, you're the person in the streets. You know the game. what are the people on the street saying? Who will they respect on city council right now?
Right now, a lot of folks are doing some research because they watch the show. They kind of listen to, some of the narratives that have been brought up. And like Fred said, it took me a little while to do some looking into Dan, and I found out the same things. Fred, I was really impressed by some of the things that I found out that I did not know. That was the first time I had ever heard him, and he impressed me in his first encounter on the show. So I went in, checked in to see what was going on. And what with the people in the street, I'm telling you right now, they're so confused. They do not know, or are they being educated about what's going on, because they're watching this Black Lives Matter movement. They're watching this coronavirus. They're not paying attention to the things that are going to really change or elevate or decrease the movement of Oregon. They're not, a lot of them are not into that. And I'm leading a lot of people to the polls. I'm leading a lot of people that are coming out and say, look, man, you got to vote. You got to vote. We got to vote. And then go home and check this guy out. Go out and check Loretta out. See who it is. I'm not telling you to vote for. I'm saying educate yourself. So you know who it is that you're putting your signature on. I can't tell you who to sign for. But if you go and look up Bruce Broussard, if you go look up anybody, you can find out what they stand for, what they believe in. And if it matches your narrative, then you put your handcuffs on it. But what I'm doing right now is I'm getting a lot of people who would have never voted to vote. So it's going to be exciting around me because a lot of folks are getting prepared to do something they haven't done. Like haven't even cared to do, but I'm steady convincing them that it's important this time that we get our voices out there, that we're heard, not by the yelling, burning, trashing, but by voting, by getting a vote and a sound vote, by knowing who you are voting for. Don't just go in there playing that test at school and just checking boxes, and hope that you pass the test. This one right here could cost your grandkids a lot. Could cost your great grandkids a lot. You need to really just do a little more inquiry, and I'm thankful that to be a part of this panel, because it's opening up something to me that I never really took too much the politics, and I watch and I know the system and how things go, but now I'm getting a little more intricate with understanding the policies and who's who and what's going on, and it's beautiful, because what I'm learning now is that we do control the system if we vote and take care of the system. We can't control nothing that we didn't vote on. There's no way to control it.
Well said, Dwight. Well said, Dwight. And again, I'll make it a point to make that, gentlemen, that's why I have you guys on. Trust me, because you're the community. I mean, you've been very, very active, and that's why Oregon Voters Digest have you guys on. We're part of that. I'm part of that process. I know each one of you. I know your strengths, and I know your weakness. You have more strength than you have weakness. Trust me. Again, thank you very much. That last note was great. Fantastic. I will see you at the next Oregon Voters Digest, and we're going to have another dynamic show. I will see you next time around. Have a good one. Tell your friends about Oregon Voters Digest. Take care. Have a good one, guys.